Hi, hello. How are you guys? How is everything going? Oh, Nasta. Hello, Привет. How are you guys? Thank you. Hi. Hi, Sky. Hi, Praxis. Guys, remember Nasta is the girl from very, very long ago. There was a compilation of videos of Ukrainian people in Ukraine saying what they need and how they feel. And then Nastya was on with us a couple of times, so she's here. Thank you. Hi, Lithuanian Ball. What do I have here? So yeah, Nastya here. You can say hi to her. Nastya, how are you? How are you doing? Привет, привет. Thank you, Christina. Sorry, my gosh. Thank you, Christina. Nice seeing you too. Sorry, I'm so bad. I feel like I always text you respond. I'm so bad at Привіт, вас також приємно бачити. But I then never respond because I'm so bad at responding lately. My texting abilities since like February have been the worst known to humanity, to be honest. I'm just so bad at that. Hi, Cheryl. Good to see you. Wait, whoa. Also, apparently my abilities of managing my my tripod too. How are you guys today? Hi, Awesome Boy 789. Thank you. Hello, newcomers to Twitch. Good to see you guys too. Hi, New Zealand. Hi, Karine. Hi, Squirrel. Also, yes, Nazar, Squirrel would know. Him and I share quite a few similar ADHD traits. Hi, Device Maxime. Zelensky inspired makeup? I don't think so. Was he? Oh, because he was wearing like all green to September 1st. No, it's just, weather inspired. I kind of wanted to do something different today, so this is what we're doing. We're doing green, except it's like green and purple combination, so depending on which way you look, it looks different. So this, if I look this way, it kind of looks brown purple, and then if I look that way, it's green. So it's there is a lot going on here today. Hi, Crazy Cat. Thank you. But yeah, so well, today is September 1st. September 1st is when Ukrainian kids go to school. And it's a good and bad day because it's also when Russian kids go to school. And a lot of, in the occupied cities, Ukrainian kids are being forcefully sent to Russian schools in order to Russify them. And their parents are being threatened with the taking of their parental rights if it doesn't happen. So it's kind of a bittersweet first day of school. I was live a little earlier, and I was trying to explain like Ukrainian traditions of going to school. So basically, first of all, Ukrainian schools usually give out textbooks to you. You don't have to spend $1,000 on textbooks every year. And most kids that, let's say, didn't get to have a textbook, they get to most kids that, like, let's say, sometimes some schools don't have enough textbooks, right? And sometimes when when Ukrainian kids don't, like, when you're one of those kids who didn't get to like school early enough and you're last in line, you won't be able to receive some of the textbooks. So you'll go out and buy them, and then normally you'll donate them back to school because you don't necessarily need them afterwards, right? So then others after you be able to get those. I donated all of my textbooks. I normally, my parents would buy me textbooks and then we would donate them to school because it's just, it's better that way, because we could afford textbooks, but someone else couldn't. So it's better if I don't take up people's textbooks if they can't afford them, and my parents buy me new textbooks, and then I just donate them to school at the end of the year. So that's what I did. But so basically about like August 15th, 17th, you usually go to school to go collect your textbooks and like kind of find out what your curriculum is like. And you're like, summer's over. Shucks. Shucks so much. And so September 1st is what we call the first bell. And Ukrainian, that's exactly what I was saying. Ukrainian kids in occupied territories got Russian alternative history lessons, and they've been in school for a while now. They've been forcing them to go to school all summer in order to Russify them. So that's what they've been doing. But Ukrainian parents are fighting mightily against that. And even in occupied territories where like they blackmail you and they threaten you and stuff like that, a lot of parents don't send their kids to Russian schools. But so today is September 1st. September 1st is the day of knowledge, and also what we call the first bell in Ukrainian schools. The way it works is like the first graders, it's going to be their first time hearing a bell, because when the lesson starts or when the class starts, and there is a bell that rings, right? That signifies that it's you're now to go to class, right? And the same thing happens when the class is over. So we call it the first bell because for the first graders, it's the first time they're going to hear the bell and they're going to go to class. And for the seniors, it's their last first bell. So the seniors walk the first graders into the school to kind of signify like a new generation of students, and the old generation of students leaving after this year and stuff like that. It's kind of like, it's a very cute tradition, although normally it's hot as balls in Ukraine right now. And so you're standing outside, your parents, your teachers, everyone, there's like speeches. There's like a little performance. It's a whole thing. And it's like so hot and it's so sweaty and you're getting so much UV light. It's not even funny. So basically it's kind of like a cute thing, but it's also exhausting, especially if you're the student. I mean, all of the school functions are exhausting. Hi, Punk. So that's kind of how we do it. And then at the end of the school year, we have the last bell. And so for the seniors who are leaving, it's their last bell, right? And for the first graders, it's their first last bell, but that's not as signatory because basically then with the last bell, I think there is like a group of first graders who are going to be going to that school, and they're walking the seniors out of the school. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like an ode to generations, or rather an ode to generations. So it's kind of like I find it a very cute tradition, especially given that it just carries a lot of meaning in it, but it's just very hot, and in theory it's very cute. In practice, it's you're standing outside sweating your little balls off, as a first grader especially, and you have no patience whatsoever. You're just kind of like, you want to meet your fellow new classmates, you want to go do cool stuff, like you want to do things, you want to meet people, you want to run around, you want to be rascal. You don't want to stand there and ring the bell. Usually there is one first grader that they choose, and she or he, usually I see it's a girl, will like sit on the shoulders of like a boy who is the senior, and they will be like walking around in circle, and she'll be ringing the bell. There is so many cute little traditions with that. But yeah, so that's September 1st today. Now, a lot of the schools in occupied territories, of Ukraine have no roofs, have no air conditioning, have no heat, have no ventilation, have no roofs and no windows. And Russians are sending kids literally to those schools. Hi, Bea. Sending kids literally to those schools to go study there and to get Russified, which is horrifying. It's genuinely horrendous. But what I realized is that I was looking up Russian schools, and it turns out that a lot of their schools in areas that are not central Moscow or central St. Petersburg kind of do look like that. They have mold everywhere. They don't necessarily have insulation. They don't have windows. They don't have heat. They don't have ventilation. They don't have like basic human conditions. So it's not uncanny that Russians would think that it's a normal environment for students to study in, especially because I'm assuming that all of the teachers that have been sent to like Russify children in occupied areas are probably from middle of nowhere Russia, and that's pretty much where those schools look like that. So I feel like they see nothing wrong with it. For them, it's just another school day, and that's, well, okay, well, there is no roof. A little worse than where we came from. And I wish I was joking, and I wish I was exaggerating, but I'm not. It is the reality of Russian education. And then the consequences of it. The people who think that Ukraine is developing nuclear pigeons and mutant ninja turtles and whatnot, seems like a pretty reasonable thing. So yeah, that's on the 1st of September, and I really hope that the armed forces of Ukraine are going to reach Kherson particularly very soon. And those kids are going to be able to go to Ukrainian schools again. Yeah, they do drown in literal shitholes. And I'm like, shithole in this case is not a curse word. It's like genuinely like a place where you go to do your business. And that's what Ukrainian kids what Russians have been not Ukrainian kids, but I feel like, unfortunately, that is the Russian way of life, so they might have to experience it for a little while, but that's what Russians experience in their daily life, because most of them quite literally do not have toilets. If you didn't know, only 30% of Russian households are connected to central gas system, and only 20-something% of Russian households have electricity. And I mean, most of those households are located in central Moscow and central St. Petersburg. Get out like 20 minutes out of Moscow, people literally still put firewood in their stoves. So Lukoil owner in Russia today have died under mysterious circumstances after falling out of a window in a hospital, because it was an unsafe window in an unsafe hospital. And that comes after that man had condemned the invasion publicly and called for the ceasing of hostilities, and called the war in Ukraine a tragedy. And I think, I'm not going to quote because I don't remember the direct quote, but it went something like this. He had called for peace in Ukraine, and he had called for this seizure of hostilities from Russia on the territory of Ukraine, and he called the situation that Russia had inflicted on Ukraine a tragedy. And I mean, he openly did condemn Russia, and he had asked Russia to take out Russian forces out of Ukraine. So yeah, and then he mysteriously fell out of a window of a hospital in which he was located. Hospital windows these days, so especially in Russia. Especially in Russia, hospital windows are so unsafe. Hi, Kay. So that's that. Also, someone asked, why is the death toll in Mariupol so high? I mean, what do you mean? I'm not sure. I really don't know how to answer that question, because Mariupol has been leveled to the ground. Like, leveled to the ground. The city doesn't exist. To be fair, this is not even the this is not even the correct amount of death toll, yet it's much higher. They only counted through the city morgue, through the morgue of the city. It does not include mass graves. It does not include ruined buildings. It does not include people who were starved. It does not include. Thank you, Dennis Lucky. It does not include so much. It does not. They're not including rubble. They're not including people who died under the rubble, and then Russians just came in and quite literally took out the rubble with the bodies. Mariupol Drama Theater is also not included because what Russians have been doing is they've been using bleach to get rid of cadaver smell, and they've been using concrete to quite literally pour it over the bodies for whatever they're planning on building there. They've also burned bodies of people in those like mobile crematoriums. It's surprising, honestly, that the death toll is so low for Mariupol, because Mariupol is the greatest tragedy of Ukraine, and it's not just a sad case. It's the greatest tragedy of this war, and probably one of the greatest tragedies in Ukrainian history. It is a genocide. And the amount of people that died in Mariupol in 6 months, from what we know, equals the amount of people that died in Iraq in 8 years. 6 months versus 8 years. And that's just one city versus the entire country. Привет. So yeah, that's a lot, and I don't know. I mean, I think that the question of why is death toll so high, to me sounds a little odd, because the question of how come is the death toll so high, to me sounds rather odd, because how come Mariupol doesn't exist anymore? There is no city left. Half a dozen Russian gas oil executives have died this year. Very dangerous field. Yeah. I mean, generally being an executive in Russia is a dangerous field, because if you do something that someone doesn't like, or you cost them 1 ruble, they just get rid of you, and you just mysteriously fall out of a window. Quite a mystery circumstance when Russian executives fall out of windows, right? So uncanny. How does that happen? Mysterious circumstances. I've seen some projects being made about plans they have to rebuild some of the destroyed places. Yeah, they do have those projects in Russia, and they want to rebuild them into they said they want to make Mariupol a resort town. And it's horrifying because so you shelled an entire city to the ground and you want to make it an entertainment center? But to be fair, honestly, I've stopped asking these questions about Russians, because obviously they're tyrannic and despotic, and just people with absolutely no soul. And I don't say that lightly, but I say that, if you're a Russian worker, you have been tasked with rebuilding the Mariupol Drama Theater, and you went there and you saw bodies, and your superior told you, hey, just pour concrete over them. How does a normal person with a healthy mental state just go, oh yeah, that sticks, I'll just do that? That's not normal. How does a person walk on the concrete floor knowing that there are dead bodies inside of that floor, underneath them. That's incredible. That's an incredible level of inhumane, and that's an incredible level of out of touch with reality. That's an incredible level of disgusting, and that's an incredible level of animalistic. Those are not people. These are not humans. I can't call them people or humans. Honestly, with how everybody in Russia reacts to everything that's happening and how they're cheering and applauding for death, I can't call them human. It's a whole country of horrific, demonic creatures. And I stand firmly by my words. And Nastya says there are stories of kids that were stuck in basements with their dead parents. Yeah. Almost half of the kids who were evacuated from Mariupol who don't have parents were sitting in basements for weeks on end or over a month with their dead parents. The reason why their parents died is because there was limited food and they were giving all of it to their kids. And they were sitting in that basement with their dead neighbors who were decomposing and with their dead parents. And a lot of these kids witnessed their parents blown up on mines when they went to look for food. A lot of these kids witnessed their parents simply dying in their arms. It's disgusting. And anytime somebody in the West genocide and says, oh, well, it's not a genocide in Ukraine because a genocide follows A, B, C, D, E, F, X, Y, Z. And in Ukraine, this is not, not applicable because we don't see patterns A, B, C, and X, Y. We just see D, E, F, and Z. Z, quite literally. And all I have to say to that is a genocide doesn't follow a pattern. A genocide is not a freaking playbook. A genocide is not something that you define by a set of measurements. A genocide is a deliberate act of killing out a nation based on just that. And there doesn't need to be a correct playbook and a set of rules to call it a genocide. Quite literally half of the population of Mariupol has been wiped out off the face of the earth. The people who are left there are not being fed, and they're being enslaved for labor. They're being forced to dispose of human bodies and rebuild the city where their entire family died for Russia in exchange for food. They're forcing Ukrainians in Mariupol to work in exchange for food. They're living in a zombie apocalypse. They don't have showers. They don't have roofs over their head. They don't have electricity. They're cooking food on the hoods of their cars because the cars are metal. And they get heated. They live in a concentration camp. People in Kherson live in filtration camps. People in Donetsk since 2014 have been in torture chambers. If they don't scream, I love Russia on every corner, The next People's Republic, everybody. Tattoos with Ukrainian symbols are being cut off of their skin, with their skin. And they call those people Nazis with Nazi symbolics for wearing Ukrainian symbols on their body. And those people dare to open their mouth and call themselves Ukrainian Nazis. There is someone on Twitch asking if I have heard about Stepan Bandera. Yeah, I have. Why? I'm very curious what you're gonna say right now. Because if you're about to tell me about Stepan Bandera and his collaboration with Nazis, I'm going to tell you right back that for some reason when Putin gives you that propaganda slip, he forgets to tell you that Soviet Union was collaborating with Nazis from 1938 to 1941. Not just collaborating, they were allies on the same side of the game. So what do you want to tell me about Stepan Bandera? Please do. Would you like to say something? Because those same people that tell you that Stepan Bandera is a Nazi are the people who were literally allied with Nazis for 3 years. But for some reason, the propaganda playbook does not like to tell you that. But they love to tell you Stepan Bandera, limited facts. Stepan Bandera is a very interesting man who had... Oh, I see. I asked you, so I wondered what you thought about him. Limited facts? Yeah, sure. Fuck Ukraine. Z. Honey bunnies, no matter how many times you tell me fuck Ukraine and no matter how many Z's you're going to put in the chat, the reality is that you live most likely in Novosibirsk with limited electricity, if any, with no gas and no modern technology. And I sure hope you love Soviet Union, because that from history books is going to seem like candy to you. Because at the end of the day, no matter how many times you curse and no matter how many times you say disgusting stuff to me, you're going to end up living in a country that's not going to have anything. And you're the reason why everybody in the world absolutely despises Russia and doesn't want to have anything to do with it. You and comments like this, are specifically the reason. So yeah, you can curse me out as much as you want. You can put as many Z's on my live streams as you want. You can talk to me about Stepan Bandera as many times as you want. But reality of the matter is, your life is about to change quite a bit. And because of views like that, Russia is not going to come out of the shitstorm it's about to endure for a very, very long time. So you know what? You enjoy your Z. You enjoy cursing at Ukraine, and you enjoy being a miserable fuck. Genuinely. And I'm pardoned for cursing. But you just called my country that's enduring a genocide by Russia, well, that. And you just put a swastika in my comments. So I feel like this one time I get a free pass on saying that. Oh yeah, enjoy your life under the regime when you have, when your views become not what your dictatorship wants to hear from you, and you're going to be the one in the filtration camp. I'll see how much you sing Z then. But I hope that those 35 rubles or 5 rubles that you just earned by making me talk to you really serve you well and you get some decent quality vodka. Have a good day. Oh, quite genuinely, I'm so tired of these trolls that ask about Stepan Bandera. It's also funny because they come on the stream and they're like, have you heard of Stepan Bandera? And I'm like, yeah, well, I have. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then go limited facts. Well, I just asked you. I wanted to know what you thought of him. Oh, limited facts? Screw you. Z. For some reason, Heroyam Slava, these people think that if they put like a Z on their message, it somehow is going to annihilate me. And it's like this magic symbol that just like eradicates Ukrainian. Thank you, Eric. Eradicates Ukrainians. It's like, dude, you look like what you are. A limited-minded person who is so thrown in propaganda and has absorbed so much of it. Thank you, Karine. You can't think for yourself, and for some reason you're proud of the fact that you can't do any job other than copy pasting Russian garbage. That must be a sad life, honestly. When you can't get a single job. Hi, Evan. When you can't get a single job to represent any of your skills other than a copy paste of propaganda. I mean, I feel for that. That must be very, 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 very lonely, and that must be very difficult. Thank you, Evan. So yeah, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and the last letter of the alphabet, after all, I never knew they were in order of importance. Exactly. Slava Ukraini. Okay, so let's dive into the news for today. The IAEA will try to establish a permanent presence as a nuclear power plant, according to BBC, citing a statement by the head of the organization, Rafael Grossi. We're getting ready for the real work that will start tomorrow, he said. We will try to establish a permanent agency presence on the station from now on. Explosions are reported in Kharkiv. An air raid alert has been declared in the city and the region. The missiles are flying preliminarily from the Belgorod region of the Russian Federation. Meanwhile, Belgorod Publics reports that one of the Russian missiles fired fell somewhere on the territory of the Russian city. It fell somewhere on the territory of the Russian city. So I will show you what that looks like. Russian missiles quite often, for some reason, end up back in Russian cities. Oh, sorry. I'm a little discombobulated today. Also, I wanted to read you something about Gorbachev because I missed on their counteroffensive. Thank you, Evan. Evan on Twitch says, best wishes to Ukrainian armed forces and their counteroffensive. So here is something that I have, that I saw today that I'm actually going to make a video on. But I noticed that there is this idolization of Gorbachev in the Western world. Oh, thank you, Nazar. Дякую. Idolization of Gorbachev in the Western world. And people think that he's a hero who ended the Cold War. He's the hero who dissolved the Soviet Union and let countries live their merry lives in their merry way, that he was this guy who listened to the people of Soviet Union. Well, he listened to Russian people, not anybody else. But here are some of the facts about Gorbachev that it seems like nobody in the Western world seems to know about. Gorbachev is responsible for brutal crackdown in Kazakhstan, 1986. Massacres in Georgia, 1989. Black January in Azerbaijan, 1990. Bloody events in Lithuania and Latvia, 1991. Under his rule, the USSR was nothing else but the Russian core, exhausting all the occupied republics. So how come this man was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize? Dissolution of the USSR. It could have been any other person in this historical moment when the collapse of the Soviet Union was imminent. Does Gorbachev hold sole responsibility? No. He was just the feeble culmination of a revisionist current in Soviet government, which was increasingly reconciled with capitalist interests. But he presided over the final chapter, and that is his weight to bear. Hidden Chernobyl disaster. When the largest nuclear disaster in human history was hidden from public eye, Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded on 26th of April in 1986. On the 1st of May, a large demo was held in Kyiv, just 140 kilometers away from a literal nuclear catastrophe, dedicated to the Labor Day. Traditionally, people would come from other regions with their children so they all could have a marvelous opportunity to enjoy radioactive dust in their lungs. If it was not the Western scientists and later on political pressure, the Gorbachev regime would have stuck to all right and hide theory. The end of Cold War. All right, we should admit that was a bold move from him, which gave a lot of humanity to him. But the Soviets were already far behind the Westerners by all parameters since like 1960s, pumping all funds into weapons and defense sector. Basically, the Soviets were defeated in the Cold War since the invasion of Afghanistan. All the rest was just make-believe, to pretend that Soviets are powerful and great. We've seen those narratives somewhere else recently, right? But yes, compared to other Soviet dictators, he was a bit more liberal. Gorbachev had no choice. Hi. The USSR lost the Cold War. The US, together with Saudi Arabia, dropped the oil prices, cutting the Soviets from any profit. There was literally no food a part of the cities of Moscow and Leningrad. That's why Gorbachev let the DDR go and the Berlin Wall dropped. He allowed Western finances to enter the USSR for salvation. He permitted economic independence at state-owned enterprises. He opened the Soviet doors to the world, though not wide open, but with only one reason: to prolong the existence of the communist regime. Doomed. The Soviet regime was doomed from the very beginning. With its false ideology, it was not meant to give something to humanity apart from cruelty, grief, misery, and broken lives. Gorbachev was just another communist who desired to keep the regime alive. He never wanted the Soviet Union to break up. He tried to preserve it. Therefore, it is wrong to show gratitude to Gorbachev to give Ukraine and the rest of the occupied Soviet countries the independence. No, Ukraine fought for that for decades. And to prevent it, the Soviet regime sent thousands to Siberia, starved millions to death. Keep that in mind. So that is my idea, and that is my understanding of the Gorbachev regime. And anytime I see people praising him in the West for being so good and for being so nice and for dissolving the Soviet Union, one thing begs the question: is a tyrant that's not as bad as all other tyrants a good person, or is he just another tyrant? I think he's just another tyrant. And also, that Nobel Peace Prize that he won, to me, is personally so painful because there's so many more people from republics that deserve that actually wanted peace in their land, that wanted to literally. And they were fighting for independence and they died during Gorbachev's time. And they didn't get anything. Yet Gorby over here, who just did not have an iron enough fist, gets a Nobel Peace Prize for dissolving the Soviet Union. He was merely the leader at the time of the dissolution, of the imminent dissolution of the Soviet Union. So yeah, please stop praising Gorbachev on Western media. Please stop thanking him, and please stop talking about how good and kind of a man he was and how much he loved his pets and family. He is a tyrant, just another tyrant. Not as bad as all other tyrants, yet still just another tyrant. Germans see him as a good person. Well, yeah, Berlin Wall. Explosions reported in Odessa. There was no alarm in the city. Later, it was reported about military drills. Updated. Also, explosions in Zaporizhia are reported. 1 second. Sorry. One second, guys. One second. Guys, I might need to pause. I don't know how to do this. Yeah, that's okay. Basically, okay, I'll try to do this, but I might need to like step away a couple of times because my dishwasher is broken and my super came to look at it, and he might need some, questions. So it doesn't stop running for some reason. It's like always on, but it also had water stuck in it. It smells horrifically, and we don't like I've turned this off 20 times and it keeps turning on. And also another thing is that the water in the fridge, like there is ice machine and there is a water thing. So the ice thing works, the water doesn't. And it smells like gas. Quite a bit. Okay, sorry. But yes, by September 1st, the invaders prepared new Russian educational standards and anti-Ukrainian propaganda for Ukrainian children in Kherson. We got the materials for school teachers in the occupied territories. This is a scenario of a conversation between the class teacher and parents of students and program of a lesson. Lesson should form a comprehensive understanding of the inextricable connection between Russia and the southwestern lands where the DPR, Kherson, Odessa, Zaporizhia, Mykolaiv, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv regions, and the Crimean Peninsula are located. The program My History is no different from the scripts of propaganda television shows with Skabeyeva and Kisilyov. It begins with a description of the Russian Federation as a great Russian power. They immediately explain that the West, which feels like the world geopolitical periphery, seeks to undermine the unity and stability of the core Earth, Russia, trying to make a split between the peoples inhabiting it. So that's what Russians are trying to teach Ukrainian children in their school. They're trying to teach Ukrainian children that Russia is the core, the West is bad, and that is history. Russia is the core of the world, the West is bad, and that is history. And they're teaching that to kids in regions that are completely disseminated by Russia. Evening address of Volodymyr Zelensky from yesterday. I held a meeting of the staff of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. All relevant leaders were there: Zaluzhny, Monastyrsky, Budanov, Maluk, Danilov, and others. I think it is obvious what issues we considered. The military reported on the situation on the front line, on the development of the situation. I will not reveal the details now. I will say only one thing. On behalf of our intelligence, I want to thank all of our people who support us very strongly in the south of our country and especially in Crimea. The intelligence officers are grateful for the information provided, and we will use it to the maximum. Let the enemies not forget whose peninsula they're staying on, temporarily staying on. The Russian army shelled 115 Ukrainian cities and territories on August 30th. Hi, legend. The armed forces of Ukraine destroyed 9 ammunition depots and 3 bases of the Russian invaders in the last 24 hours. Estonia wants to ban almost all Russians from entering the country. I'm good, how are you? Estonian Foreign Minister Urmas Reinsalu has said that Estonia is going to impose the ban, drawing on those clauses in EU legislation that say borders should be closed in cases of threats to national security. I would very much welcome such decisions in the coming days and weeks, by which we would, in full compliance with the Schengen Agreement, ban people with Russian passports from entering our national territory without making any difference whether visas are issued in Estonia or in the second Schengen country, he said. According to Reinsalu, the following Russians would make exceptions: oppositionists, diplomats, those who have relatives living in the European Union. Other Baltic countries, as well as Poland, could follow suit. Well, here's the thing that I don't understand. Russian diplomats are not really diplomats. They're the same terrorists, so I don't understand why they would be granted a special permission to go to Estonia or any other Baltic countries solely based on that, or why Russians who have relatives in the EU already would be able to cross the border if those Russians could be just the same as the other Russians, and they're not oppositionists. They love the regime. They just don't want to stay in Russia because sanctions. A lot of Russians live in other countries yet still love Russia and say that it's like the best country in the world. That's good to hear, Legend. And Evan says on Twitch, Yulia, is it true that Russia sabotaged Ukraine to join the EU, which pretty much started the conflict in 2014? Yes, it is. Russia had a proxy president in Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych, who is a complete Russian sellout, and he was supposed to sign the accession to EU agreement, or the agreement to basically let Ukraine try and join the EU, if a conditional EU accession agreement. So instead of that, he decided to sign the treaty with Russia, which is basically the trade treaty with Russia, which is like USSR 2.0. And that's when people started a rebellion because, well, obviously we didn't want that. They lied to us. So yeah, it is very true. And to legendarische Levi or Levi, are you from Germany? Is it your first time on this stream? Pontoon crossing near Daryivka Bridge destroyed. Operational Command South. It is also impossible to use Daryiv and Kakhovka bridges for crossing equipment due to their destruction after strikes by the Ukrainian armed forces. In total, over the past 24 hours, the losses in the southern direction of the invaders are as follows. 201 Russians, 12 T-72 tanks, 18 armored vehicles, Sansepiok heavy flamethrower system, Bulk M3 surface-to-air missile system, 5 MSTAB howitzers, the Akatsiya self-propelled howitzers, 2 self-propelled artillery guns, 3 mobile mortars. And welcome. Well, welcome here from the Netherlands. Welcome, Netherlands, rather. Well, we're welcoming you from the Netherlands here to our stream. The Russian army has launched 2 offensive attempts in Donbass, both failed Ukrainian armed forces. In the Bakhmut direction, the enemy units attempted to conduct offensive battles in the areas of Vasala Dolina and Zaitsevo. In the Novopavlovsk direction, the enemy conducted an offensive battle in the vicinity of Vodina settlement with no success. The Russian army is concentrating its efforts on establishing full control over the territory of the Donetsk region, as well as containing the seized areas of Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Mykolaiv regions. Zelensky addressed Ukrainians on the Day of Knowledge. Everyone starts this school year differently. Someone is far from home in other regions of Ukraine. Someone is far from home in other countries. Someone remotely in an online format. Someone is at home, school, or their university, but still not at peace. However, it is important that the school year begins. It is important that learning continues and that knowledge about Ukraine is not interrupted. The Russians are shelling the pre-agreed route of the IAEA mission from Zaporizhia to Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. UN advanced team unable to proceed due to security concerns, according to head of the Zaporizhia OVA, Staro. Ukraine continues efforts to ensure safe access of the IAEA international mission to Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Update. Zaporizhia nuclear power plant shut down Unit 5 due to shelling, according to Energoatom. IAEA mission leaves Zaporizhia for Enerhodar despite shelling in the city. There is heightened military activity in the area. Having come this far, we're not stopping, Grossi said, noting that the mission was aware of increased military activity in the area but planned to extend the mission to the site and meet with plant personnel. But obviously, Russians are preventing that from happening. I don't understand why they say yes to these things, and then people come and they're like, nah, we're just wasting your time. Why would they even say yes? Like, it's so stupid. 380 children killed as a result of Russian armed aggression in Ukraine, according to prosecutor's office. As of the morning of September 1st, 2022, more than 1,116 children have been injured in Ukraine during the war. 380 children have been killed and more than 736 injured to varying degrees of severity. Putin creates legal and social conditions for forced cultural assimilation of displaced Ukrainians in Russia to erase their Ukrainian cultural identity, according to the Institute of the Study of War. Also, according to the U.S. Institute for War Studies, the occupation authorities are trying to forcibly integrate Ukrainian schools into the Russian educational space. As for military actions, experts confirm a counterattack by the AFU and strikes on pontoon crossings. They note that the counteroffensive will not be quick. For their part, the invaders have conducted a limited ground attack from north of Kharkiv, southwest of Izum, south of Bakhmut, and near the western edge of Donetsk, north of the Kherson region. Zelensky published photos of Ukrainian kindergartens, schools, and universities damaged by Russian invaders. Dozens of universities, hundreds of schools, and kindergartens throughout Ukraine were damaged and destroyed by the invaders. They sought to leave us without our past, history, culture, and knowledge. They did not succeed. We continue to live, we develop and develop ourselves, learn new things, study and become stronger. And most importantly, we're building our Ukrainian future, free and independent. And this is what that looks like. These are schools, kindergartens, and universities. You can say.
Okay. The problem in the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need the water? The ice is working now? Or?
Yeah. The ice has been working, the water hasn't.
Okay. And the water doesn't work?
No. Oh. IAEA mission to Novo-Alexandrivka checkpoint convoy stopped, according to Interfax. The convoy is about 20 kilometers from the front line and is waiting for safe passage. Meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry said that allegedly Ukrainian troops, 2 sabotage groups of up to 60 people in 7 boats, landed on the coast of the Kakhovka Reservoir, 3 kilometers northeast of the Zaporizhzhia NPP, and attempted to seize the power plant. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry also commented on today's shelling of Enerhodar near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. In violation of the commitments undertaken, the Russian army is intensely shelling the corridor used by the IAEA mission from Zaporizhzhia to the plant. Russia must immediately stop these dangerous provocations and allow the IAEA safe passage. Updated. New shelling of Enerhodar is reported. The information is being verified. Also, I apologize for disruption today. IAEA mission arrives at Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, according to Russian media. Update, Energoatom also confirmed. Reuters writes that the delegation may stay at the plant for less time than planned. Russia loses over 900 elite military.
He will call you tomorrow.
Okay.
To set appointment. Okay, Jody, muchas gracias. Se lo encargo lo antes posible. Okay, gracias. Okay.
Russia loses over 900 elite military personnel in war with Ukraine, according to BBC. As of 1st of September, 245 members of the Rosgvardia, mainly special forces,
Okay. You check it out and let me know, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. And the guy is coming tomorrow to check this metal gas.
Mm-hmm.
Show me. Okay. And for the water, the fish. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And they always say about the rain.
Yeah. I am calling her. I'm calling her right now. Yeah.
Yes, okay?
Yeah.
I'm saying that you have to call, okay?
Yeah. I am.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let me know about it this way.
Okay. As of 1st of September, 245 members of the Rosgvardia, mainly Special Forces, SOBR, and OMON fighters, and 151 members of the GRU Special Forces have been killed in Russia's war against Ukraine. Almost 1 in 4 of those killed in the Rosgvardia and GRU Special Forces was an officer. The other unalived include elite military professionals, naval infantry, airborne military pilots, FSS and FSO. British intelligence update. Over 30th to 31st of August 2022, Ukrainian armed forces continued offensive operations in southern Ukraine, supported by intense long-range strikes against Russian command and logistics location across the occupied zone. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense also released video footage of Ukrainian aircraft operating high-speed anti-radiation missiles. Russia has previously claimed that it has recovered fragments of these types of weapons, which are designed to locate and destroy radars. Russia prioritizes strong ground-based air defenses. The radar coverage which enables this is a critical capability in its Ukraine operation. A substantial sustained degradation of Russia's radar with harms would be a major setback to Russia's already troubled situational awareness. With tied hands and a cover on his head, another body was exhumed near Kyiv. The brutally murdered man was found buried in a forest near the village of Zdvizhevka. During the occupation, there were positions of Russians. The man's hands were tied, and on his head was a cover from the headrest of the car. Now it is difficult to determine the exact cause of death, but there are signs that the deceased was tortured. At the moment, the identity of the deceased has not been established, but the man is wearing specific clothes and has a watch. Therefore, there is hope that his identity will be established quickly. According to Andriy Nabytov, head of the Kyiv Region Police, another 214 residents of the region are listed as missing. The Kremlin is going to postpone the referendum to the end of fall. The Russian RBC writes, the optimistic scenario holding referendums in September most likely will not be implemented, but they're thinking about holding pseudo-referendums on the Day of National Unity in the Russian Federation, November 4th. The decision will depend on the situation at the front. According to Meduza, another Russian media outlet that has already been banned in Russia itself, several options for holding referendum are being considered in the Kremlin. In September or October, hold referendums in the occupied territories of the Kherson and Zaporizhia regions of Ukraine, and in late fall in the LPR and DPR. To hold all pseudo-referendums at the same time, but later. It is noted that the Kremlin expects that by late autumn, they will be allegedly able to completely capture the Donetsk region. It is noted that preparations for the referendum have already begun. I don't know where they're taking this info from, but they're completely out of it. I don't even know what these people are thinking, to be honest. There is a video of Lukashenko.
В последнее время очень часто мы из СМИ слышим.
I'm very interested in whether there is English translation to this. Okay, so there is no English subtitles, so I can't really show you that. Belarus will probably work out the seizure of part of Ukraine during the exercises. On September 8th to 14th, Belarusian military will for the first time work out liberation of the temporarily occupied territories, the conduct of the counteroffensive and access to the state border. The Russian military and the CSTO countries will take part in the exercises. According to the plan of command and staff training, it is supposed to liberate part of the lost territory of a conditional state. It is not excluded that the so-called lost territory refers to the border area of the Volyn, Rivne, and Zhytomyr regions, said Alexei Gromov, deputy head of the main operational directorate of the General Staff of the AFU. Such plans correspond to the concept of common actions of the so-called Union State, Russia and Belarus in the Ukrainian direction. The probability of an enemy offensive from the territory of Belarus of an invasion of Belarusian troops into Ukraine remains low, he continued. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation and Russian military correspondents have already called the counteroffensive of the armed forces of Ukraine a failure, thereby starting as an information campaign against Ukrainian troops. This is according to the Institute for the Study of War. Analysis from the American Institute for the Study of War are sure that it is too early to draw any conclusions. A counteroffensive operation in the south will be difficult to assess in the short term due to false maneuvering and misdirections that distract the enemy. The occupiers carried out a limited ground attack north of Kharkiv, inflicted ground strikes south of Bakhmut and along the western outskirts of Donetsk. In Crimea, the occupying authorities have begun to re-engineer air defense systems to counter smaller targets in response to repeated drone attacks on the peninsula. And this, and in the Trans-Baikal territory of the Russian Federation, they announced the formation of a volunteer engineer battalion, Daursky. Meanwhile, the G7 Nuclear Non-Proliferation Directors Group denounced Russia's attempts to disconnect the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant from Ukraine's power grid as unacceptable ahead of the arrival of an international atomic energy agency delegation to the plant. U.S. practiced counteroffensive with Ukraine and South in war games, according to CNN. I don't know why it didn't get posted. U.S. analysts helped the Ukrainian military work through various counteroffensive scenarios to understand what forces they need to muster for the success of the military operation. If initially the armed forces of Ukraine considered the possibility of a counteroffensive in many directions of the front, then later it was decided to reduce it to the Kherson region. We will not comment on the specifics of these interactions. In general, we provide Ukrainians with information to help them better understand the threats they face and protect their country from Russian aggression. In the end, the Ukrainians make the final decisions about their actions, said Pentagon spokesman Brigadier General Pat Ryder. Russian propagandists showed Russian military equipment at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. This happened during the implementation of the IAEA mission of the nuclear power plant. This is expressly prohibited by the norms of international law, but the occupiers no longer even hide their crimes. Media reports that the IAEA delegation has already left the Zaporizhzhia NPP. Several mission experts will temporarily remain at the station. This is what that looked like. I don't know if they're blacklisted words. My moderators, my moderators would know better. I'm not sure. The Russian army shelled 93 nuclear cities and territories on August 31st. Oh, you can say, I see. European war researchers report that 93 settlements were under fire from enemy rocket and cannon artillery yesterday, which is below the average for the last 7 days, which was exactly 100. The Donetsk region in particular, the settlement of Avdiivka, still remains among the anti-leaders. The enemy is trying to establish full control over the territory of the Donetsk region and keep the captured areas of the Kherson, Kharkiv, Zaporizhzhia, and Mykolaiv regions. The General Staff on the beginning of September 1st. If this word is banned. Yeah, I think Squirrel set up modding on here, so Squirrel might have been Squirrel might have been responsible for Putin as a blacklisted words, but I can see that because there were a lot of Russian trolls coming on here and like saying whatever it is that they need to say, and so that would not be uncanny. So Rafael Grossi has posted his statement on Twitter saying, "I'm finishing my first visit to Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. We're here to stay and will maintain a continued presence at Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant." Hopefully they'll be able to do so, but we never know. The work of Ukrainian military with HIMARS is demonstrated on this video. Mayor of Enerhodar Dmytro Orlov reports that since morning the city has been under constant mortar. On the eve of the visit of the IAEA mission, the Russians resorted to new provocations at Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. As a result of another mortar attack by the Russian occupying forces on the site of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, emergency protection went off and the operating 5th power unit was shut down. Tomorrow at the meeting, the finance ministers of the G7 countries will approve a plan to limit prices for Russian oil. It is reported by the Wall Street Journal. At At night, the Russian army attacked the Odessa region with 2 Onyx-type missiles, the city council reports. The Russians fired missiles from the Bastion coastal missile system from the temporarily occupied Crimea. 1 missile was destroyed by Ukrainian air defense. The second hit the open area. No people were hurt. No damage was done. The leadership of the Russian Orthodox Church is spreading propaganda that arbitrarily proclaims the will of God for the sake of imperial dreams of dictatorial rule. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier at the opening of the 11th Plenary Assembly of the World Council of Churches. No Christian who still has faith, reason, and feelings will be able to see the will of God in imperial dreams and ruling dictatorships, Steinmeier said. The World Council of Churches is the largest international ecumenical organization uniting over 300 churches, mostly Protestant, but also Orthodox and Anglican. Thank you. Let me see. I wonder why people collectively assume that morality has a place in geopolitics. Those who argue that diplomatic negotiations should not take place with terrorists fail to see that this blind hatred will only bring more victims in Ukraine. I also find it very telling how Russia, and especially Putin, are seen as terrorists and sometimes even as the devil, but I cannot remember that these morality knights saw figures like Obama and Bush as terrorists, while they had much more blood on their hands. And if Putin really was such a devil, why didn't he just start a blitzkrieg? Okay. First of all, there is no negotiation with Putin because Putin will tell you okay and then will never do it. Same as they said with the corridor, same as they said with grain shipments, same as they said with everything. And they just don't go with it. And it's not telling, it's just that every single time there was a negotiation, the negotiation was not held up. The results of the negotiation were not held up. Now, Obama and Bush do not have as much blood on their hands as Putin does. No one's saying they were perfect. But no, they do not have as much blood on their hands as Putin does because Putin blew up residential buildings in his own country to start a war with Chechnya. Chechnya is blood on his hands. Georgia is blood on his hands. Moldova is blood on his hands. The conflict between Kosovo and Serbia is blood on his hands. So if you would like to spread Russian propaganda, then maybe start with it rather than come in here, pretend like you're listening, pretend like you're interested, pretend like you're asking questions, and then bring in the whole, oh, but let's deflect to America. Oh, but let's deflect to other situations. Don't deflect. We're not talking about America. We're not talking about the US right now. We're talking about Ukraine. We're talking about what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening between Putin and Ukraine. The negotiation with Putin is not possible because there already was negotiation where Russia guaranteed our territorial sovereignty among other countries in 1994, and we gave up our nukes to it. You want to know why there is no negotiation? Because the negotiation was to give humanitarian corridors to let residents out of Mariupol, and they were mined. The corridors were mined. Then they were shelled, and then they were bombed. So yeah, good luck with your rhetoric of Russian propaganda. And I will ask my mods to ban you because clearly you're a Russian troll who is a little better at his job than other people are. If you're not, and if you're actually from the Netherlands, and you're not Russian, then I feel so sad for you. Because that is so incredibly upsetting that you would be saying things like that as a resident of a progressive European state. Now, goodbye. Washington believes that the Russian army in Ukraine is experiencing an acute shortage of personnel and is looking for ways to increase the number of its troops, CNN reports. We believe that the Russian Defense Ministry is trying to fill this gap by recruiting military personnel under contract, in particular encouraging wounded soldiers to return to the battlefield, hiring employees of private security companies, and paying bonuses to conscripts, an unnamed U.S. official said to the CNN. There are credible reports that the Russian Ministry of Defense is likely to begin massive recruitment of convicted criminals in exchange for pardons and monetary compensation after Vladimir Putin signed a decree last week to increase the number of troops by 137,000. However, it is still unclear how exactly the Russian Ministry of Defense is going to solve this problem. In the temporarily occupied Mariupol, the occupying authorities plan to destroy the unique archaeological monument Mound Did It will be transferred for the development to a Rostov entrepreneur, said Petro Andrushenko, advisor to the mayor of Mariupol. On the last day of summer, the armed forces of Ukraine gathered a very good harvest in the southern Ukraine. In particular, 201 enemies, 6 enemy ammunition depots, command posts, 12 tanks, and a lot of heavy weapons were eliminated. The president of Ukraine will be the first head of a foreign state whom I will call in case of my victory in the elections, the head of British Foreign Office and the favorite of the post of Prime Minister, Liz Truss. I want to show the Ukrainians that they will continue to receive full support. I know how important this is for President Zelensky and the government of Ukraine. Ravil Maganov, vice president of the Russian oil company Lukoil, fell out of a window and died. This is reported by a number of Russian media. Yes, the accidental falling out of the window of Russian officials. The accidental falling out of the window. Normal thing for Russian officials, just happens all the time. Solovyov promises to take revenge on German Chancellor Scholz. Handling the words, "we will never forget, we will never forgive," is the highest degree of cynicism on the part of the representative of the country that unleashed a bloody war against Ukraine. September 1st, one advisor to the mayor of Mariupol shared a photo of the situation in one of the local schools. Mariupol right now, this is what the beginning of the educational process looks like in school number 41. The building and entrance are cordoned off by the military. Everyone is checked at the entrance, even children's backpacks. There are almost no people, the same as there are no repairs, broken windows, and just covered with foil. Here it is, the truth about the repair and readiness of schools under the occupiers, writes Petro Andrushenko. This is what that looks like. This is Mariupol today. Kharkiv residents rolled out the consequences of the Russian world into concrete. This is Kharkiv. Today is September 1st, and this day Ukraine celebrates the Day of Knowledge. President Volodymyr Zelensky visited a school in Irpin on the occasion. Ukraine will definitely win because our children deserve it. US restricts sale of computer chips to Asia and China, the New York Times. The new restrictions apply to high-performance chips sold by NVIDIA and Advanced Micro Devices. Ukraine will receive 2 NASAMS systems from the US in 2024, according to Pentagon. Romania wants to buy 18 Bayraktar TB2 combat drones with equipment from Turkey for a total of 300 million euros. Danish Foreign Minister Jeppe Kofod arrived in Kyiv to underline the firm support for the Ukrainian people. Okay. Intercepted conversations from the invaders, which I will play both here and on YouTube. But give me 1 second because it is 53 seconds long. First of all, hello, condescending sir on Twitch. Little late for reparations, don't you think? Aren't the majority of the people that were a part of the dead, a part of that are dead and or about to be dead? Well, first of all, you don't need to come in here all condescending because it is not me who made this up. It is not me who is asking Germany for reparations. It is quite literally Poland. So if you'd like to be condescending or ask that question, you can ask it to Poland. I am giving you the news for the day. So there is no need to come in here and be condescending to me. Thank you very much. And also, no, it's never too late for the reparations because it's not only about the people, it's also about their families. And it's also about the damage done to Poland in general. Thank you. Also, yeah, a hello would have been nice. Oh. One sec, let me set it up because you guys know that I need to show it to you on two different places, rather in two different places. So you know that I gotta make it work. Ah. Okay, one sec. So mirror, mirror, mirror. Alrighty. So many crazy people find me on here. Why not? When was this? Yesterday? No, I had one today. Didn't it just... Something's like going on with my computer today. It's being very strange and very, very annoying. Here. Sorry. I apologize for the wait. Oh, finally. Okay. Alrighty. So now it wants to work. Better late than never, right?
Нормально у вас? Все. Говорят, в кольцо взяли вас. Да, так и есть. Еще доставать-то будут? У нас ничего не осталось уже, ни воды, ни еды. Ни связи уже нету. Какие дела? Они наступают на вас и вас, да? Ну, сегодня пока... Но они везде вокруг, короче, стоят, везде. А говорят, еще это, 7-й рота вообще там все раскрыли. Да, вообще никого не осталось, по-моему. Вот я сегодня тоже, мне парнишка звонил, он там с кем-то разговаривал, говорит, 7-й рот раскрыли, медиков раскрыли. Комбат ебался, блядь, я охуел тебе, блядь, и вообще ничего не говорят, ни, да, никак.
So this is how the Russians are feeling in the south. Obviously, the Ukrainian counteroffensive is failing so hard that their intercepted phone calls are panicky and they don't have water or food or anything left. I didn't say that, they did. Since the beginning of the war against Ukraine, the Russian Federation has lost more than 900 elite military personnel, which we talked about a little while ago. According to experts, the consolidated military units of the Russian army were not ready for assault operations. As a result, special forces units, Marines, and paratroopers had to take over tasks normally performed by infantry. As of 6 p.m. on September 1st, 2022, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, left the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Most of the members of the delegation left the plant with him, the statement reads. 5 representatives of the mission remained at the plant and will stay there until September 3rd. Ukraine will receive 6 underwater mine detectors from the UK. Niagara Falls in the colors of the Ukrainian flag. That's a nice gesture of support. Oh. Okay. How about now? Oh, sorry. Oh. I didn't realize. Sorry. The war separated many families, and every Ukrainian is looking forward to that most important meeting. We believe that all Ukrainian soldiers will one day return home to their families. This is an important breakthrough and a result of a difficult decision. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, gave details about the EU's decision to suspend the agreement with Russia on simplified visa issuance. The agreement consists of 5 elements. The visa facilitation agreement has been terminated. This will significantly reduce the number of new visas that the EU issues to Russians. In the future, Schengen will be issued primarily to representatives of vulnerable groups, including Russians who oppose Russia's war against Ukraine. Russian passports issued in the recently occupied territories of Ukraine will not be recognized. The EU will develop a joint decision on what to do with the millions of visas already issued to Russians. EU countries bordering Russia have been given the right to apply their restrictions. It paves the way for closing the EU land borders to Russians now without waiting for major joint EU decisions. Zelensky discussed anti-Russian sanctions with new Prime Minister of Israel, Yair Lapid. I've held my first telephone conversation with the new Prime Minister of Israel. I count on his country's accession to the sanctions on Russia and provisions of practical assistance to Ukraine in countering the aggression of the Russian Federation, the president wrote on Twitter. Russian propaganda tirelessly spreads disinformation designed to destroy Ukraine's potential for resistance and reduce support from partner countries. But if the consolidation of efforts with the West had been opaque and fruitless, it is unlikely that the Kremlin would have spent so much effort on this issue and discrediting it. Russia in 6 months of the war caused damage to the Ukrainian environment of 1 trillion hryvnias. The Minister of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine, Ruslan Strelets, announced this. This is the damage according to 3 indicators: pollution of air, land, and water resources. Let me show you what Ukrainian land looks like to begin with. This is Ukraine. And this is the environment that is being destroyed. The body of another civilian tortured by the Russian army was found in the village of Zdvizhivka of the Bucha district. The man's hands were tied, a hood was put over his head, and he was executed. The body was found at the former positions of the Russian army. Ukraine and the United States held war games ahead of the counteroffensive in the south to better plan the operation. The US urged the Ukrainian side to limit the goals and scale of the counteroffensive so to avoid getting overextended and get bogged down in serious fighting in multiple fronts. These discussions included war games to understand the necessary forces for the counteroffensive. The United States believes that the Ukrainian and Russian sides have reached parity in the war. The Russian army still maintains superior numbers and overall manpower and weapon, while the armed forces of Ukraine are better at using the modern Western arms they have received. Background: on August 29th, the Ukrainian armed forces launched a military operation in the Kherson region, which the media called a counterattack. The operation was preceded by massive strikes on the bridges, ammunition depots, and headquarters of the invaders. Operational Command South, the armed forces of Ukraine hit the Kakhovsky Bridge and prevented the Russians from building a new crossing. The attempt to establish a new pontoon crossing in the area of the village of Darivka was also cut off with our fire. The fire control of the Kakhovsky Bridge left several additional holes, continuing to fix the inoperability of the infrastructure facility, the command reported. And that is all I have for today in terms of news from Ukraine, news about Ukraine, and yeah, that's for today. So thank you very, very much for watching. The fundraiser is still ongoing, and please go check out my link in bio, and you can donate some to the fundraiser for the Armed Forces of Ukraine, as we have been trying to raise $10,000 since August 7th, and we have raised $8,500 so far. So yes, Cindy is snoring very loud. But the fundraiser is in my link in bio, and you can easily just press it here. It's called Fundraiser, and it will be going to the Armed Forces of Ukraine, specifically the frontline medical drivers who are responsible for patching up soldiers at night and who are responsible for bringing life-saving medication to the front lines during the day. So please try to check out the fundraiser. The link is spot.fund/eyes for the frontline drivers, eyes for frontline drivers, and it's also available in my link in bio. So please check it out. If you can donate, anything helps. $5, $10, $15, whatever you can. Thank you so very, very much. And also donating, every $5 donation enters you into a raffle for the stamps, for the Russian Worship Go F Yourself stamps that I'm currently framing. So you might be the lucky winner, and the winner is going to be selected randomly. So thank you very much, and I will see you later tonight. Bye, guys. Bye, guys.